Hello, everyone. It's Peculiar Stories here, and this is Alba Monroe's story. Many people are losing a child under various circumstances, and always the whole surroundings, family, and friends are concerned with this. Many people have the need to read about what was helping others in their sorrow. Following a life-threatening accident at the ICU, I had a near-death experience together with my dying child, being in another hospital at a children ICU and who was dying like myself and was clinically dead after more than 1 hour, all this without myself knowing this. This experience in this situation completely changed my worldview and turned the parameters of my inner convictions upside down. I was confronted with things, suddenly reaching me as a truth, that until then I never understood nor considered as essential. My biggest help in my great sorrow during this near-death experience came from my deceased child, when she, after I understood her most important messages, could let go, as she reached the most important goal in her life in fixing everything before her death. I knew that she only could leave in freedom if she had been telling me all I had to know, to be in a position to deal with this unexpected bad situation in order for me to freely accept and understand everything. At the same time, I had been giving my dying child her biggest joy and taken away her biggest burden, and I equally received at the same time the greatest gift through this encounter with my dying child and the perspective I got through this encounter. The greatest gift is the certainty that many things in reality are completely different as they seem, and that we often consider important things as unimportant and unimportant things as very important. That it's not indifferent how we pass our own lifetime, and that it's not indifferent how the balance of our life shows up. To the contrary, this life's balance is the most important thing for every human being, and it became the top, most important standard for me. It's not indifferent if we made our peace when we die. Quite the opposite, having my life balance straightened out has since been my utmost priority and has changed my life radically. And it gave me the certainty that my deceased child, and we all, are also safe and loved in our darkest hours, very often without being aware of. And that death never again can take away our gratitude for her existence, even though it was rather short. At the time of my near-death experience, I was in ICU. Immediately after emergency surgery, I was still bleeding inside and in the process of dying. A second emergency operation shortly after my NDE literally saved my life. Together with my daughter, I had an accident. She was clinically dead, had to be resuscitated, and was transported to another hospital about an hour away and put in children's ICU. Unfortunately, she was in an even a worse condition than I was. She had no vitals except a heartbeat, no brain waves, and no own breathing. After our accident, my husband didn't try first aid, but left with his car. Nobody knew about this, and I was compelled to deal alone with the situation, and so I reflected if my daughter would have any chance for a normal life, as in order to spare me more stress after the life-saving surgery, nobody informed me how bad her situation really was. I was in an inner turmoil and was constantly accusing my husband internally for the fact that our daughter had to wait too long for medical help. Unexpressed immense rage, mute accusations, and extreme hate towards my fate in general, and towards God and especially my husband, was eating me up internally. In this situation, I was blessed with a near-death experience, catapulting myself into another sphere that I later called infinity. I experienced a space out of time. I had a telepathic conversation with my daughter, and she started it with prompting me to forgive him. I couldn't see any sense in this. In a telepathic dialogue that I later wrote down word for word, I explained to her that I considered his attitude as unpardonable. She told me everything I needed to open up my close-minded perspective of pride and self-righteousness, and I could understand intellectually that pardon was preferable. She disclosed that she too could forgive, but that with her it was a matter of all her life. In this moment, I supposed she was talking about a physical and mental disability and not about her own death. It was only later that I understood what she wanted to tell me, that she was at peace with her imminent death. I was shown a kind of evaluation concerning the result of our life. I was shown a huge scale like an ancient pharmacy scale, and I was shown that my husband and I will be evaluated in exactly the same way. I was shown our best internal abilities and qualities, at the same time the actual result at this point in time as a life balance. I was shattered, as of course in my internal state of mind, full of anger, hate, and rage, the worst fears concerning the condition of my daughter, violent internal accusations towards my husband, even though he didn't cause the accident. This result of the life balance was everything but flattering. I felt very sorry. I felt incredibly ashamed about my reactions at the events, and I deeply regretted not having listened to my daughter and not having forgiven my husband. I sensed a deep regret, because seeing it retrospectively in this place, I couldn't change anything anymore. I felt a deep sorrow for this meager result. I felt a big compassion for myself and also for my husband, and I felt an intense love flooding everything at the same time with the other feelings, and strongest was my desire for pardon of my own shortcomings, and at the same time I knew that it couldn't be changed in the aftermath, what almost broke my heart. When I was thinking, now I understand everything, I suddenly was on top of my preferred mountaintop, 2,000 meters above sea level and only a few meters away from the crest. Immediately in front of myself was a simple wooden fence, as they are used for grazing livestock, with a narrow passage for hikers. Everything was completely realistic. It was about 5 a.m., and the weather conditions fitted this time. It was foggy and windy. Several times my hair was blown into my face. Suddenly, an enormous black boulder was lying in the middle of the way, at least 2 meters in height and diameter and with plenty of pointy and sharp edges. I tried to bypass it, but it was absolutely impossible. At the left, there was a straight rock face. At the right, a perilously steep gradient. For the first time, I understood that my life was at stake. This black rock could easily crush me. There was no way out. Suddenly, I heard myself say, "I forgive him." And the black rock was suddenly rolling down into the abyss. When I wanted to continue my way, I suddenly was catapulted back into the hospital and was under tears. I felt released, blessed, and forgiven for everything that I had been considering as a shortcoming in my life until then. I was completely at peace with my fate, with God and the world. I was convinced that I experienced something wonderful. I wrote an SMS to my husband apologizing for my accusing him in thoughts, and that I was sure that everything would be fine, that probably our daughter would be disabled, but that we would be able to deal with all this. A few minutes later, I suddenly felt a strong heartbeat and understood that my daughter was doing badly. I was shocked, as I had just been so sure that everything would come out fine. I asked for a Bible and was reading the psalm of her birthday. At the end, it said, "Lord, hear me in the hour when I'm calling you." And I knew that it was her moment of death. I conjured the nurse to call the other hospital, but apparently she was not allowed to. When the female doctor arrived an hour later, she told me that my daughter died exactly at the time when I was reading the psalm. I'm now sure that my daughter came back from infinity of her free will, getting resuscitated, to give us some more time, to reach me and fix everything before leaving forever. In reality, my little daughter was head and shoulders above myself concerning acceptance and forgiveness of her fate, and while in danger of death, she helped me to get important insights and to find peace. As soon as she knew that everything had been cleared, she could let go and leave in peace. I'm incredibly grateful for her keen action and her immense help and support in a life-threatening situation. I've resolved to dedicate my whole further life in her honor. That does it for today's video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment below.